Gladstone to Gardner. You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
Different world, but in some ways, things have almost never changed. Keatsman is joining us to wrap up the hour. Uncanceled coming up in less than 15 minutes. So you get to Kansas State in the fall of 1982.
Yeah.
And what's going on then with the military? And this piggybacks off of our caller of the day. Active military was down at a quick trip in Belton, and he got heckled by 4 high school kids who called him all the worst names you could possibly imagine calling somebody who is active military. But that brought up for you a memory from 1982. What was it?
It was weird. So Manhattan, if you don't know the geography of Manhattan, is the bigger of all the towns there, but it's adjacent to a small little town called Ogden. And then there's Fort Riley, which is a pretty big military base. And on the other side of Fort Riley to the west is Junction City. And when I got there in 82, I didn't know much about the military, and I was too young to remember Vietnam and some of these other things. But we didn't grow up with any sort of a sentiment of, if you saw a soldier in a restaurant, you'd give them a thumbs up or thank them for their service. Like, I never grew up around any of that. There was none of that. And as I've learned history, there was sort of a hate military, hate America kind of thing going on in the 60s and 70s, which are now the people that are older than me, the blue hairs that we see on the street corners everywhere.
Yeah.
That's those people from when they were teenagers and whatnot, raising hell. I feel like they want to bring the hate America thing back with this Iran war. So when I get there in 82, I didn't know this. I'm 2 weeks in and Ronald Reagan comes and gives a speech. He's president. And it was a life-changing moment because I wasn't really that political. And then I heard this. I'm like, well, yeah, who doesn't believe this? But the parties there was never any distinction. You know, we were talking before we came on, like John Kennedy today would be a conservative, no question. There wasn't that much difference between the parties. But that war branched a lot of people off into some really weird stuff. And one of the things they hated was military. When the guys came back from Vietnam, and it was guys then, their life was hell. These people were treated like crap. Vietnam veterans were treated like crap forever. John knows this really, probably better than I do.
Well, you remember Channel 9 did do the special on the nurses, too, from Vietnam, and they experienced a little bit of that as too, but they were certainly in a minority. It was mostly the men, but to your point, yeah.
There were some that said, you know, I had a decent assignment in Vietnam. I came home and it got worse because people hated you.
Yeah.
So I get there in 82, and, you know, we're the last people in Kansas that could drink at age 18. So I'm 18 years old. I get there in 82, right? And there's bars in Aggieville and whatnot. And we get there, and it says college students with ID free, military personnel $20.
Which in today's dollars is what, 60, 70, 80 bucks?
It's a big gift. If you're in the military at Fort Riley, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So they didn't want anybody in Manhattan from Fort Riley. They didn't want them coming over to the businesses. They thought it would be trouble. Now, the military was different then, and it is the Big Red One. So if there were a ground war, that is actually the men at the time. That would have been the men that would have been up front on the ground going in under fire.
Yeah.
Like the worst jobs in the Army. And there was trouble in Junction City. They knew that there was crime there because that's where they had their bars and they went. And I think there was just kind of this prevailing feeling that our university really, we're not very well off. Dads are not going to want to send their daughters here if the Army guys are hanging out in Aggieville. And I kept thinking to myself, I don't know any soldier, anybody in the military has ever done anything to me. I don't get any of this. We never saw it. There was never any trouble in Aggieville. But when I got there, they didn't want the military in Aggieville. Now, they couldn't stop them. If you had a $20 bill, you were going to get in. But we just hardly ever saw them. They just were not welcome. And I just thought, when I first got there, I thought, this is the saddest thing ever. Why are we living in a country where we feel like we can't be around our own soldiers? And that, I think, is what the Democrats want to do again today. And they're doing this with the Vietnam War. We're seeing all this violence. He mentioned the kids that came into the convenience store and gave him the hard time today. They're not getting this between each other. They're getting it off their iPhones somewhere from somebody on the left telling them to hate the military guys because they're worse than Trump. They're out there doing what Trump's telling them to do. And so they get filled with hate, and we're seeing this everywhere. And I hate to be mean, but I think it's what the Democrats want. They want chaos. They want Americans to hate the military, hate the Republican Party, hate Trump. They want it all. They want to shut all the good things in this country down. They do.
There's an element of it, but you know what's strange, too, if we're being honest? There's this anti-Israel faction on the right as well that kind of has made this entire thing about being, you know, Netanyahu's puppet. And that bothers me because while I've got my issues with how we've handled it, it's like, I don't think that Trump was like, let me just do whatever Netanyahu is telling me to do here. Right. And I'm going to blow the midterms because of Netanyahu. Because, by the way, if you're Netanyahu, let's be honest, you want the Republican Party in charge of this country, not the Democrat Party.
No doubt. And they got along really well until this. There's been some points during this conflict where they've had some issues with each other, but I don't know. I just don't spend any time in this, Pete. And I know we do politics here, but I'll always confess to my audience when I don't know what the heck I'm talking about. But man, we start getting into all these different religions and sects of people and things that they believe in and whatnot. I just am not going down those rabbit holes. I don't care what your religion is. Please leave me alone about mine. And that's that. That's that. I'm worried about America, not the religions in America. Just don't break our laws.
Yeah, that's it. Final minute. So when you saw Reagan, September 9th, 82, and you weren't a political person, what made you say, I want to go to this? Was it just because he was the president? Yeah. Was everyone else going, or were there kids who didn't go?
I didn't even know him as an actor, but they were selling like bedtime for Bonzo T-shirts in Aggieville. They were like monkeys on them. Bonzo movies were monkey movies, right?
Right.
Never saw one, but I didn't know Reagan was in them. So they had these Reagan characters with these monkeys, and they're selling all this stuff. We're all wearing all this swag, thinking, hey, this is kind of cute. The president's here. And he got in and just started laying it on the Soviets. Yeah. And we're like, whoa. And he's like, we're going to be a great country. It was Make America Great Again. I think in that speech or one following that, he was actually the first person that coined that. Reagan said, Make America Great Again. Wow. It's in speeches. I don't think it was that day, but it was around there. And I needed to hear that. We'd watch these hostages and Jimmy Carter, and I sat in gas lines for 2 hours to get gas in my first car. I paid $1.35 a gallon for my first tank. Wow. You know what that is today? Yeah. That's ridiculous. Yeah. $1.35. We just had $2 gas here a couple of years ago. I'm like, it was all insane. So we were all ready for a change. We're like, oh, this guy makes sense.
Well, it's amazing. And you're right. There's some of that. As much as things change, they almost never change in some respects.
Talking about the same things.
Yeah, you're right, man. Hey, have a great show.
Thanks, buddy.
Keatsman Uncanceled is next. Back tomorrow morning at 6.